So when we're talking about Charlottesville and we're talking about options, in addition to driving, their own car, the first thing we need to talk about is CAT, which is our public transportation system here in Charlottesville. And so there are reduced fares for seniors. They do need to go down to the transit station, fill out a form. They just need to show an ID. You can't do it and mail it in. You have to go in person. And then they'll get a card. It's 35 cents a trip, 75 cents for an all-day pass, and $10 for a monthly pass. So pretty reasonable, And I don't know about the people you're working with, but I know a lot of seniors love the spontaneity of the CAT system. You can go anytime you want. As long as you have access to the bus. Now, when you look at that map, though, that is really daunting. Even myself, it's like, what color do I need to take to what location? And in my past, I've used trains and metro and the T in Boston and buses, especially when I was abroad. But it is intimidating. So one of the things I want to show you today is a way to help someone you might be working with through the system. And so you go to Google Maps. And this is the most, I think, incredible tool that they've developed. And every year they kind of tweak it a little bit. But right now, if you go to the top, you can choose to get directions by car, by walking, by transit, and by bike. And so it'll come up with a map for you and directions that is for that, for the way that you want to travel. So the first thing to do is to choose the bus option. And then you can come down here and check preference, which is wonderful. You can check, I don't want it to have too many transfers, or I want the most efficient route, or I want less walking. So that's the second thing to do. And then you hit the day that you want to travel and the time. And then options come up. And it actually maps out the route. It'll tell you the bus number that you're looking for, at the time the bus will be there, where you're going, if you have to transfer. And I think this printed out with circle and and they could follow along, it goes a long way. They know when they end up in the transfer station or the downtown transit station, they'll know if they have to transfer or if they just sit tight and the bus will continue. And so we occasionally make these up for seniors. You can laminate them or fold them up or have them and do specific routes. Like if you're just trying to get to the senior center, you're just trying to get to the mall, from your house to the mall, here's how you do it. Here's how you get back again. And when you play with the times, you get different options. So you just need to kind of tweak it a little, change it up by 15 minutes, see what different options come. Or, of course, use a CAT guide, and then you'll know how many minutes apart the buses are going to be. But this is a wonderful tool, and I encourage you to use it for any senior who would like to try using the bus. Of course, yeah, we're going to talk about JAUNT. And the one thing I should tell you is in Charlottesville and urban Albemarle, and many of you have heard me say this before, we actually provide door-to-door transportation for people with disabilities. It's an ADA-mandated service, and we actually provide it for CAT, the regular bus company. And there is an application, and it's available on our website, and I do have examples here. And age is not a qualifying factor. It is something that you take into consideration. But what CAT is looking for, and the question that they're trying to answer is, well, why can't this person just take the bus? It isn't about why isn't this person driving or the fact that they're giving up their license. It's more like, why can't they walk a block and take the bus? And there's lots of reasons why someone can't walk a block and take a bus. And I think you'll find it very comprehensive. It's ability to walk, ability to stand, ability to comprehend the schedule, and all of those things. The best thing you can do is paint a clear picture of what's going on in this person's life and send it in. They say, if they say no, they say no. They say yes, they say yes. If the conditions change, resubmit. The other thing is, and this often gets overlooked, if you have someone you're working with that has a temporary condition, they had surgery, they broke their foot, whatever, you can also apply for this service. And then you would be qualified for JAUNT, or he or she would be qualified for JAUNT. And in those cases, they put just an end date on it. Maybe you just need it for 6 months. Maybe you need it for a year. Someone who might be going through cancer treatments. So, think outside the box when you're working with someone. They may very well qualify for the paratransit service. Now, in January, when I talk about JAUNT, when you leave the urban area, of course, we do all sorts of things, and you don't have to be qualified through the paratransit application, but that's for January. I wanted to touch on this, and I am not a Medicare and Medicaid specialist, but just a reminder, anyone who has Medicaid, that will cover medical transportation. And I can't tell you the number of people who call JAUNT and don't know that, and they're struggling meeting their transportation costs for these routine or significant medical trips. And I'm like, have you called Logisticare? And they're like, what's that? So Logisticare is the broker, essentially, for Medicaid transportation in Virginia. I called them myself to make sure I was giving accurate information. And basically, as long as they have their Medicaid number, they can give Logisticare a call. They'll set up the trips for them. They do have to reserve 5 days in advance. So takes a little bit of planning. JAUNT is a provider of Medicaid transportation, but there are many providers. And what they'll do is they'll choose the provider that will, can make perform that trip the best and be most affordable. So don't forget to talk about that with people you're working with. So, of course, private providers is a huge part of transportation. And, I'd love to say that, JAUNT can do everything, but we can't. And we really welcome all of the different options that are available. And, of course, there's taxis. There are accessible taxis in town, so that's always available. Don't forget about things like the church buses. If you are working with someone who needs a ride to church and they don't qualify for JAUNT and they can't get there on CAT, then call up the church, see what they have available. Sometimes they have carpooling available, they have volunteers that might help out, or they have buses that come around and pick people up. Many of you, raise your hand if you provide transportation in your business or facility. Yeah, that's great, and that's something that you definitely, when you're working with someone who's a senior, take that into consideration, because that is wonderful. JAUNT can provide door-to-door service, but we don't go into a doctor's appointment, and certainly CAT doesn't. So you need different transportation options for different situations. Nonprofits like WorkSource has buses in addition to using JAUNT. If there's UVA has shuttles, and so if you're working with someone who needs to go to UVA all the time, research about what they have available. The Northridge shuttle would be free from UVA. They could use JAUNT potentially if they qualify, but there's a charge involved. And of course, senior businesses, which is here. Additional options. Don't discount like walking, carpooling, neighbors, family, friends, and of course driving themselves. When I have people call me for JAUNT and they do qualify for some reason, but they are also still driving and perhaps still want to use CAT, I'm like, bring it on, do it all. If you just don't want to drive at night because your vision is affected, then use JAUNT for that. Or if driving in that heavy commuter traffic to that routine class that you're taking is daunting, take the CAT bus or carpool with someone. But the more options you can layer in, the better. We at JAUNT, a couple of resources. Our mobility analyst maintains a database. It's a working database, so it's not something we publish, but we try to catalog all the options that are available in the area. So if you are working with someone and you have a question, whether it's in Charlottesville or somewhere outside of Charlottesville, give us a call, and we're happy to refer people to another mode if the person can't use JAUNT, or if JAUNT isn't a good match for what their need is. And the other thing is the mobility analyst can also look at big picture things. So I had someone call the other day and needed, she was like, I ride with you guys all the time. And she was hoping to get her favorite driver and our bus to take her all the way to D.C. to meet up with her friends. And I'm like, oh, I'm like, we can't do that for you. And I felt terrible. But we researched all the options. We researched the train, we researched the bus, we researched the other modes up in D.C., trying to find a way for her to do it. So we're happy to do that if you give us a call. We're happy to refer to other agencies. And, my TED Talk's final thought for the day is more options. The options, more the better. The more you can work with someone to layer in some really great transportation options, the healthier and better life that they will lead. So thank you.
I just have a kudo. As a former hospital social worker and case manager, it was a great opportunity to use a different kind of transportation for people when they're leaving the hospital. So maybe they couldn't comfortably get in and out of the car and they could ride a wheelchair van. So I would always call JAUNT first to see if they were available. I would print out the JAUNT application, get them to fill it out so that they were in the system. So once they got to see what it was actually like, it's kind of a step in, because that person might need it for, like after surgery, for instance. They might need it to go to their doctor's appointments. So for us, it meant that they would actually follow up.
Right.
And that takes a load off of family or providers like you guys are. But it also gives the person exposure.
Right off the bat.
That they're probably definitely going to need down the road.
Right. And back to your question too about your father being reluctant to try JAUNT. So the guest factor, going with him the first time and making it something fun, like going out to lunch or a favorite location, can go a long way to easing someone's anxiety. And that goes for the CAT bus as well as JAUNT. So just think about that and just make it in the middle of the day, make it easy, and just and then it gives you some information and makes him feel better. I think most of the time when someone actually finally connects with the system, connects with the drivers, they feel a lot more comfortable using the system. If you're working with someone who in the neighborhood is taking a class at the senior center, and there's another person in the neighborhood that's also going in the class and happens to be certified on JAUNT, then that person can bring that other person as a guest and use the service even though the other person's not certified. So you can partner up. Friends can go with friends, and we have a lot of that. We have neighbors who will take their next door neighbor with them on JAUNT to go to a job or program or something, just because, as a guest, that's always an option. So as long as they're going from the same location to the same location. So just keep that in mind, too. They pay the same rate. So in Charlottesville, it's $1.50 each way, and so the guest would pay $1.50.
And is there a limit on how many times a person can be a guest?
No. No. And two things with that. An uncertified passenger or rider in Charlottesville, any of us, could ride JAUNT. But if you're not certified, the rate is $15. So most people don't choose to do that. And the reason the rate is so high is because we can't compete with the taxi service in town, even though it really isn't the same. They took us to task a couple of years ago, so we have to keep the rate up high. So that's always an option. And some people actually do find that rate is less expensive than a taxi sometimes. So that is always an option as well. And then personal care attendants, as long as they're put into our system and approved, they ride for free. And we welcome personal care attendants because, of course, our drivers are trying to drive, and so the more help with the people who are traveling with us, the better, so that's a welcome thing.
right there where the driver makes
Well,
change and all that? Or?
yeah, just like CAT, we do ask for exact change, and people do carry cash, and it's, it would drive me crazy. Some of our fares are like $6.20, and you're like, But the other option, which I think is much better, is to purchase a book of tickets. And then the tickets don't expire. They're easy. You just leave them in your purse, or you give, if someone is a little, challenged with dementia or something, you give one ticket at a time and just, get them through the system. And then you can buy those tickets at the fare value they need. So when we talk about the county service, you can, whether it's Fluvanna fare or Charlottesville fare, we modified it accordingly. So. Well, I'm glad you asked that question, because there's two things I want to say. In the good old days, it didn't expire decades ago. But today, they are putting an end date on the application. So they may give a year or 2 years certification, and then they want to revisit. Just to make sure that the people who have been certified to use the system need to use the system. Well, that's a great question, too. And for JAUNT, Monday through Friday, when the schools are up and running, we follow the school schedule. So if Charlottesville School is shut down, all service for JAUNT is canceled. And then, this is really key for any of you who are providers, you can call and reinstate a trip. So it's really important to remember. So we will shut down, but if you have someone who needs to go out for dialysis or cancer treatment or something, call us and we'll try to get them back on the schedule. We'll still continue, especially in Charlottesville, because it's an ADA mandated service, we'll try to continue to run as long as it's safe. The only caveat to that is, if your walkways are clear and, and we can get to the bus and to your facility or to their home in a safe manner. Now, on the weekends, the best thing to do is to check the Facebook page, the website, or give us a call. Because we will make those calls based on, the weather conditions. And certainly if CAT or Charlottesville ever shuts down, then we shut down completely. We had that one day, I think, in a huge storm system a couple of years ago where, everything had to stop. But as soon as they get back up and running, we get back up and running. Does that answer your? Yeah.
Since you cover Charlottesville and Albemarle, it's possible that Charlottesville schools are closed, Albemarle schools are going to be open.
Right. Yeah. So rural Albemarle would run in that case, and Charlottesville would. I know Albemarle just closed because it rained. I love that. We love Virginia. It totally depends. And if you're working with people outside of Charlottesville and in the rural areas, like Nelson might be running, Buckingham might shut down, Fluvanna might be, it all depends on what those counties are doing with the school systems. And
so it runs in those counties if the counties are open, or?
Monday through Friday, if the county schools are open,
whatever county.
we run. Yeah, we run. We leave it to them to make that determination because we don't have quite the breadth and staff to get out and examine all the roads in all those counties to make sure that we're safe. But again, even if this, and then I guess the second part of that is, okay, so the first day we shut down, Charlottesville we'll try to add trips back if it's something important and the person still wants to go. But the next day, if the school stays shut, we may choose to open. So that's when you should check the Facebook page, the website, or the main message on the phone. Usually we change that. This year we're also instituting a number 5 you can push, and that we will try to maintain the current weather information on number 5. So you can push that and find out what the load, because sometimes, as you know, dispatch gets jammed up in inclement weather. Service animals, of course, are welcome. Small pets that are crated, you can take them on the bus. You just need to give us some advance notice. And yes, someone who is registered or qualified to use JAUNT for paratransit service, you can use it for anything. Absolutely anything. The service starts at 6 in the morning and it ends at midnight. We ask that people are home by midnight. And you laugh at that, but we had someone who, had a little bit of too good of a time at a U2 concert one year, and a driver was looking all over JPJ for him and finally found him. So yeah, sometimes it's after midnight, but yeah. So, but yeah, absolutely, And I have to say, I was at Hamilton's one night with my husband having dinner last Christmas, and it was a Saturday night, and we watched, he's always on the lookout for jaunt buses. This is one of his things. And so this jaunt bus pulls right up, because there's the road right there, and stops, because it wasn't a thoroughfare. And the driver helped this gentleman off. It was about, 9 o'clock at night. And he comes into Hamilton's, unpacks his saxophone and starts playing music, and he was like 85, and he was amazing. And so, he uses it for his gigs. Whatever you need jaunt for, if you're certified to ride, book your trip. Absolutely.